Welcome back. Another wonderful day of Fusion 360. In this video, we are going to learn how to do some basic sketching and basic creation of objects. This will be the second video in a brand new series I'm doing with Fusion 360. Fusion changes often. They have updates. If you have a green bar at the top here, when you open up Fusion, you'll know that it has been updated. You can check the list. There's a link in that bar. But things change from time to time, and that's good. Fusion updates things. It changes the way the icons look, the way that things are forming. The functionalities change, interactions change. So if you find that this video is a bit outdated, just bear with me because things change often, and I can't make new videos all the time for every single update. Now, this is the second video, so if you followed the first video, you'll know this right here, the Proteus add folder with our Fusion 360.01 save file. And when you open Fusion, you're going to see that there's a defaulted untitled document. This is fine. You don't have to use it. You can just come in and open up a file that already exists like this, and that's all you need. But I'm going to use a brand new file, and the first thing you should typically get the hang of is to save any new project you're doing. Just the first thing you do. The very start is just to go Command S or Control on Windows. You can go up here to the file list and go save as well. I'm going to save it in my projects Proteus add folder, the one I made in the last video. I'm going to save this as Fusion 360.02. We're going to create an object, but you can call it whatever you want. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you something about building a bit of a database of objects. And this is important because let's say I go back here in my projects folder. I have many different things, things I've been working on over a few years, things I teach students with. And I have this folder, a few different folders. One's electronics and one that I use all the time is called hardware. And inside I have just a database of objects I've built. And these objects, some of them I've actually imported from other people because they already have them. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. But most of these I made myself, and I use them in basically everything. So like I have this M3 bolt, which is 4 millimeters long, 6, 8, I have different sizes, and they're all individual files. Because let's say I make an object that needs one of these bolts, an M3 by 8. Then I can import as many as I want into that project folder, and it shows me exactly what it looks like. I can see exactly how it fits together. If maybe I need a different size of bolt so I can order the proper parts. It's just a really nice way of building everything within your project, including the nuts and bolts. You can do anything else too. I mean, I have rods, I have a magnet I use quite often, I have servo, power connectors, buttons, different things. I have even more other folders depending on what they are. I have electronics. Let me show you my electronics, which just takes a bit longer to build because they're a bit more complicated, right? LEDs, buttons, certain boards, not too complicated. This one's very basic. It's just what I need. Or extreme complication like my Arduino Nanos and everything else, batteries. It's just something I do over time, and it just builds. So if you have nothing, don't worry. We're going to build the first thing. We're going to build a bolt for you today. The other thing is I have this right here, which is going to show you which keys, so I can type right anything I want, and it will pop up here. So if I use a certain key command, you'll see it down here with my shift. This will light up for shift, and this will light up over here for command or control. Control on Windows, command on Mac. I'm on a Mac right now. So let's go back. I'm in here. I have it saved. Hopefully you have it saved as well. And just as a quick FYI, if you want to import an object, let's say I want to import a bolt. Let's go M3 by 6. Right click, insert. If you click this and nothing happens, or it gives you an error message, it's because you haven't saved your file. So this is why I say always save first off. Even if you delete it later, that's fine. Just save it because you cannot import anything until it's saved as an individual file itself. So it imports it in, and now I have this bolt in here from here. So if I change this file itself, it'll change in here as well. There should be a little icon that pops up to update. And this link, if you see this link in your files, your document list here, that tells you that this is not changeable. You can't actually adapt it in here. You have to go to the original file. you can actually unlink it. And what it does, sorry, that was a bell. It unlinks and it creates a new version of it here, which you can edit. Those are just quick tips. We can go into that later on, but I'm actually going to Command Z out and remove that because I don't need it. And we are set. Okay, so first we have this menu here, the creation menu. This is going to create objects. This is where you make something, and this menu here is where you edit something, you change something or modify. What you see here is the default list again, so if you don't have this, make sure that your screen is either the same size as mine or it just is in the drop-down menu here. You might have changed it too, so you can add things by going to our 3 dots in the list and just go pin to toolbar and it will add it there. And the same with removing it, remove from toolbar. Now, sketch 1 is the very first thing in the list, and it's the most common way to create an object. This is what you do in any CAD program where you click the sketch button and you create a new sketch, and then you extrude or make that sketch 3D, and you can create multiple sketches, as many as you want. We're going to create a few different sketches today. But first, you're going to follow me. We're going to do another trick that people usually don't learn until later on using Fusion, is we're going to create some parameters. Under the modify, we have this thing down here called change parameters. I want you to go down here and click that. You can actually add it to your toolbar because it's very, very handy. It's especially handy if you know the size of the object or you know the sizings that you're going to be using in an object, because these parameters become a universal thing within this single file. I have to mention that it doesn't transfer between different files as of yet. Unless Fusion has changed it, I don't know about that yet. Your parameters you create here will not go to a different file. Just be wary of that. Now, if you click the plus button for user parameters, we're going to have this box pop up. We have name, sizing, and everything else. I work in millimeters. If you see something else, I would like you to change it right now and go to document settings right here. Just cancel out, push escape if you want. Escape is the default to cancel anything in Fusion. Hit this document settings, drop it down. Mine says millimeters. If yours doesn't, just go here to millimeters. Maybe you're in inches or something, but go to millimeters and we're all set up. So back to parameters. Then we're going to go to user parameters, hit the plus button, and let's name these very, very simply and try to avoid using spaces. If you know how to do any coding in any coding language, you'll know that spaces are not your friend. You want to use underscores or hyphens or something, or just shorten the word and make 2 words into one. So we're going to call the first thing M3 diameter, or DIA. My caps lock is on. Let's go lowercase M3 DIA. This is just coding practice as well. And we're in millimeters. You can change it to 1,000 different things. So you have other things like even forces and strength options, but we're going to use just distances. The expression is the size, and we're just going to go 3 because it's 3 millimeters like this. Comment if you want. I don't need it. M3 diameter is like this. Next, we're going to get a new one. We're going to call head diameter, head DIA. This is my way of using terminology. You can have your own. People have their own. It changes throughout. We're going to make this 6. This is the head of the bolt. I'm just going off the top of my head, but there's a good pun for you. 6. Next, we're going to go head height, or sometimes I just go head H, but I'm going to go height just for clarity. And I'm going to go 3. This is also going to be 3 millimeters. And then I'm going to go, let's say, Allen insert. And what we're going to be creating is something that I use all the time, which are Allen keyed bolts. I find them really handy. I think, honestly, Allen key is one of the best torque type of bolt to use because it doesn't strip very easily. You get the Robsons, which is the square. You get the Phillips, which is the sort of plus sign. Oh, that bell's pretty loud. Here we go. So Allen insert, we are going to go, let's go 1.5. This is off the top of my head. Again, you can change this later. And why we're doing this is because when you have these parameters and you use the parameters and you're making something, when you change them, anything that uses that specific parameter will change, and the whole entire object will actually adjust itself automatically. So as much as you might not use these parameters all the time, it's good practice to use them when you can, because everything will readjust automatically because it's all in relative relationships. And you'll get what I mean if you don't understand right now in a minute. So let's just keep it like this. We can add more later. So we have these 4 parameters. Pause the video and just make these exactly as they are, and it will help you go through the steps. Okay, so we have our parameters. Now comes the actual creation part. Let's create the head to start. So we're going to hit the sketch button. If you don't have it here, again, it's under create sketch. You can add it back to the tool list. I repeat things a lot. In the first video, we saw this, and I'll show you how to navigate around. Just to repeat myself, I have the middle mouse button. So you're going to need a mouse wheel in the middle of the mouse, and just click it down. It should be a button as well. If it's not a button, please get a mouse with a wheel / button. You just push it down. And you drag. This is not moving the actual object or the document. You're moving the camera. And then hold shift and click the mouse button and move, and you can rotate around. The other way is to use this box up here. And I'm sorry if you feel like I'm being repetitive. It's just because some people might not watch each video in order. They're looking for a quick answer. It just happens. It's just the way these instructional videos work. We want to get the bottom layer because I want to make this a vertical oriented object. The middle here is really important. Any engineer or a machinist or somebody that makes these things for you, and let's say you want to CNC something or 3D print something, the origin is the center point of the entire document, or the universe that this object lies in, this infinite universe of X, Y, and Z. So try to keep this point here in the middle as the exact middle of your object. It makes everyone's life so much easier. You don't want it to be out here somewhere. Use that point every single time, no exception. So hit the bottom layer here. I'm going to repeat myself just for 2 seconds. Sketch, bottom layer. It says top, I'm looking down. If I go like this, I'm looking down. So hit that bottom layer, and that's the bottom plane, and it will disappear, and up comes this little target. You can zoom in, but it doesn't really change because it adjusts its size. And the panel up here, your tool menu, will change. This is good because this is the sketching panel. And you have way more options if you pull it down. You can add stuff. So in rectangles, I add this rectangle myself to my toolbar. And for circles, I typically use the center diameter, which is also defaulted up here. Another important tool you should have is the sketch dimensions. And then these over here are constraints, which you may not use for the first while. And I'll talk about them in a future video. But for right now, these are how to adjust a sketch that already exists, not add a sketch. So we have, again, creation of a sketch. We have modifying, it's the same terminology, changing something. And we have constraints, which is a new thing, which is basically just saying these are going to be new rules that this sketch will follow as we go through. If you understand how CAD works and other programs like AutoCAD, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're very transferable. Let's create this. We're going to create a center diameter circle. So I'm going to click this button right here. If you don't have it, again, repeat, repeat, repeat. Find that center. This is the origin point, right? That's right there. Click it. And now we have a dragging out with our distances changing. Now, if you remember what the parameter was, I think it was head. So if you type in, instead of a number, you can type in 6, which is the number we want. But we want to use the parameter, which is going to tell this to stick to that exact parameter no matter what happens. Now we have head diameter and head height if you type them all in. So rewind and type those in if you can. We're going to use head diameter. Click it. And then it locks it in. Even if you move your mouse, it should be locked because that lock symbol's there. Hit enter. So now we have a diameter of 6. Next thing is we are going to extrude this. This is a very basic sketch. We don't need anything else. We're not going to create ridges yet. We'll do that later on, and I'll show you why later on. So we're going to extrude this. So right now we want to finish the sketch, and we're done. Now the sketch is an individual thing. A new list here pops up with sketches. You can adjust that sketch. If you want to edit it, just right click and you can go edit sketch and it will pop back in. You can edit it and it will change everything as if it was going back in time, which is down here, your timeline. I remember I was talking to a friend yesterday about, he's actually mentioned using Fusion 360 for the very first time. And he was saying that videos don't explain why things happen, which is why I'm kind of making this video. So hopefully he will see this and learn something from that. Now, we have the sketch, we're going to extrude. So it's this right here, extrude. The short key is going to be E. You can also use Q, but we're not going to be using that. Just use E for extrude. And as a quick tip, the extrude button here, E, only extrudes straight objects. So if an object comes at an angle, it already has an angle built into it, it will not follow that angle. It will extrude vertically based on the exact dimensions of that flat area. That makes sense to you, hopefully. So if you click it, let's just start again. Extrude. It clicked automatically, I guess because there's only one object in the thing. Now we're going to go head height. And it should pop up like this. It becomes 3 millimeters. You can rotate around, hold shift and middle mouse button. New body is good. Operation is important. Make sure it says new body and not anything else. And then we are good. Everything else stays the exact same. So now we have the head of our bolt. So if we have the top here, we want to go around to the bottom. I'm just dragging with my middle mouse button and shift and rotating. And we're going to create a new sketch. We're going to go to the bottom of the object. You can select the plane, the original origin plane, but we want to use the object as a reference. So this is a new reference based on our currently created head. And we are going to click that, and it makes this bottom plane our sketching area. Your screen should have been different. If you're brand new to Fusion, it should have snapped itself to the bottom like this. So if that's confusing, don't worry. It should have snapped like that. What that is, it's actually a preference up here. And in one of these options, it should, under sketching, where's reading, drawing, override. It's one of the options in here, data, units, defaults, design. One of these options has a camera snap to like sketch plane or sketch view. I don't like it myself. People do. It's up to you. So just be wary of that it should have snapped. So just hold shift and rotate with your middle mouse button. Click down, rotate down. I love the 3D view. Just a preference. New, back to center diameter circle. We're going to go to the center here, and we're going to click and drag out. You have to drag out to get it to move. You can't just click and start. It has no reference right now. It has no dialog box to type into. So drag out a bit, just a bit of a habit. Now we're going to go bolt. No, what is it called? M3 diameter. That's what it's called. M3 diameter. And now it's locked again. Hit enter. And now we are set. So here's what's going to happen. This is where I'm going to show you why parameters are important. In the first example, we're going to hit E for extrude. And we are going to click not the outside, but the inside here, our actual bolt itself. This is the head, and here's the bolt. Let's go 10. Just type in 10. You can also, if I hit 0, nope, that's 100. If I hit 0, you can also drag this arrow. And right now it's snapping to millimeter sizes. If you zoom in, it should snap to small, half. Zoom in even further, it snaps to 0.1 millimeters. So it all changes back and forth. So we want to go 10. I'm going to middle. There's that bell. Middle mouse, scroll out, and now I have this. And this is where the dialog box changes from operation to join. Join is the default in Fusion. It's something I actually don't like myself. I've asked Fusion to change it, but they haven't. I guess just my workflow is different. We want to have join, but I typically like new body myself because I join later. It's just the way I make things. So join is what we want. We're at 10, we're at that, we're set. Now, here is where things are going to change. So this is an example of why it's important to have the parameters. The parameters, M3 diameter, if I double click this, I can change the name, I can change the units, but I'm going to change the size. Let's just show you. Inspect measurement. It says 3 millimeter diameter, radius 1.5, and so on. Same thing down here. Okay, you're going to click the edge. That's the center, the ring. If I change the parameter to, let's say, 3.5, now if I inspect it, it becomes 3.5, which means anything I do that uses that parameter is going to change. This is something that has to become a habit for you, and it's really important, especially when you have very complicated objects with very, very specific references, because you don't want to have to go back and change a million different things that have the exact same sizing within an object. Let's say you're making a head gasket for a car, right? You're going to have the cylinder sizes, you're going to have the bolt sizes. Well, why wouldn't you just make a parameter for bolt sizes and cylinder sizes? And that way, if you have to adjust it for a new version of the engine, then you can actually just change the cylinder size by whatever size it is, and all the cylinders will change. So it's a handy thing to get the hang of, and it's really helpful to use. So try to use parameters just as a rule of thumb. Let's go back to 3 millimeters. So click parameters, change the M3 diameter, DIA, to 3 millimeters, and go back. Now we're set. This is the ugliest bolt we have so far. Next, we are going to add the insert, the Allen key insert. So we have a third sketch to create. This is going to be on the head part of the bolt. Click your sketch, and you can see if I rotate, my origin point is at the base of the head. This is my preference. Maybe you like your origin be down here. If you want to change that, just as a heads up, here's a bolt joke for you. So I have my origin, click my origin, bring it up. It shows. I'm going to click my bolt, hit M to move, and I can actually adjust it and bring it up like this. And then my origin is at the bottom of the actual bolt itself. But this is just me, so let's keep it right here for now. There's other ways to do it, but we'll look at that later. We're going to make the Allen key insert. So click your sketch, drop down, create sketch. The top of the bolt, click that. And now we're going to find a brand new tool here, which is under polygons. And you're going to find a circumscribed polygon. This is the 5-sided Allen key insert. So we're going to find the center now. Just repeat myself, polygon, circumscribed. And then we want to find the center. A green circle will pop up. Click it, drag out. And this is where you can actually go any direction you want, but it kind of snaps in a certain position. That is the XY planes, and Z, if you're doing it in Z. So it snaps to it. If I go to the origin here and bring it up, you can see the XY. So there's the X is snapping on the green. So it snaps, and then it can snap on the Y. I'll explain why things happen. It's really important. If you ever teach somebody, do that. So now we're going to type in Allen insert, and it says 6. No, Allen key insert. Okay, and now we're like this, and it should snap. Try to find the snap. It might be a bit more finicky. Mine is for some reason. There it is. Click it. Okay, so this is going to be the diameter. So this object uses diameter. Some use full radius. Some use diameter, some use radius. So polygon circumscribed is using the diameter of it, or the radius. and not the actual diameter. Escape, escape, escape. We're set. We're good. I don't need to change anything else in this sketch. You can barely see it. If I remove the body, you can see it there. Finish the sketch. Now we're going to actually cut into the head. So here we go. Extrude. And we're going to select our Allen insert. And we're going to cut down. Now, just from my memory, head height, head diameter, M, inserts 1.5. Let's make a new parameter. Allen insert height. You notice how it went red there, just as a heads up again? That means it's an already existing parameter that you titled the same thing. That's just what that means. Height. Allen insert height. So I know that the head height is 3. Let's go 2. And good. Allen insert height, a brand new parameter. Next, hit extrude. Go back here, and we're going to go head or Allen insert height. You can type in head. H pops up this, that's fine. Allen insert height, click it. Now, if you look what happens, it's going up. We actually want to go down into the object. Because it's coming out of the object, it defaults to join. If I click on here and I push a negative in front of it, it will reverse that number, because really this is not a word, it's actually just a reference to a number. You can negative that inside, and it defaulted back to cut instead. This is the other option. We're cutting in. You can change it to join, but that's just going to do nothing because it's going to already exist there. We want to cut. A new body will create a brand new body, and it will not cut in. It'll be a separate body that's just kind of, for some reason, transposing into that object. So here we go. Cut. I talk too much, I think. And now we have our Allen key insert. So let's say this Allen key size is wrong. I can go back to the parameter, Allen insert. Let's make it 2. Hit enter, come back, and it's bigger. Everything is adjustable, everything is changeable, and we're pretty much set there. So we have a sketch. We have 3 sketches created right here. 1, 2, 3. They're hidden. Once you extrude them, they hide away. So you can just bring them back as well. You can re-reference these sketches if you want. You can click this sketch. You can copy it. You can edit it. You can change it. It goes back in time to that. Let's Command Z just to finish that off and not change it. So I have this, and I'm all set. Next, what I like to do is actually create these little ridges on the outside. We're going to use a few more tools, and this is where we get a bit more complicated, but it's going to be a tool that you might fall in love with. I do myself. It's a great tool, the circular and even rectangular patterns. This is for repeating objects. You can see that the example shows the main object plus it repeats itself around. So what we should do first is create our little ridges, because if you look at these type of bolts, they are quite tall with the Allen insert, and they have a kind of a hard ridge, a grip around the outside. It's a vertical line grip. It's not a, I forget what it's called, the cutouts where it's little diamonds cut out on the side of it. It's a vertical ridge. So what we will do is create a new sketch. And actually, let's create a brand new parameter for this, because this is the habit we should get into. Let's say grip width, and let's make it 0.2. And let's go grip, not height. Sure, let's go height. Because I get confused myself sometimes. When you say height, I think Z height, the vertical height, but I mean height as in width and height in a 2D square. And let's also go 0.2. Let's go 0.3 for fun, actually. So 0.3 and 0.2. So copy these, grip width and grip height, 0.2, 0.3. Create your sketch. Click the top of the head. You can click the bottom too, doesn't really matter. But right now, let's go to the top. Now, we are going to create a little square. And this is where we don't use this square. This square is good for what it is. You draw out 2 points, but we're going to create a different type of square or rectangle, a center rectangle. This is actually what I use the most, just because I like things to be centered, especially with the origin. So the center rectangle, I added it to my toolbar. 3 dots, pin to toolbar. And what I like you to do also, because organization is really important, click it, hold it down, and drag over. If you clicked it and let go, just push escape, and it will cancel out of this, right? This rectangle. Escape. So hold it down and drag it over and realign it with the other rectangle, just for organization. So here's where we get to snap to things. So we have, if we get rid of the body, we have this sketch here. We're going to go and we're going to find the origin here, the middle, and we're going to drag out, and this green line appears, and it kind of helps you snap to things so I can come back to it. This is really handy for aligning things nicely, so just snap along, follow all the way out to the very edge of the circle. And then you're going to click on the edge, and it should be aligned with the green thing. So let's say grip height. Sure, grip height. That is going to be that one. Hit tab, the tab button. Should be beside Q on your keyboard, and you hit grip. We're going to go width now. And if I zoom in with my mouse button, my middle mouse, you can see it's just like this. But you'll notice one thing though. It's centered along the X axis, or actually the Y axis, but it moves out from the center of the object. So technically, if the grip height is 0.3, that's the entire length here is 0.3. Let me zoom in even more. 0.3 is this whole length, which means this area here from just this edge to the center of the edge of the circle, the head, is only 0.1 because that's half of 0.3. So just be wary of that because that's from the center one. The other one, the 2 point, it goes from here out, not here out on both sides, but here out on one angle, one direction, not the band. And then you will have a 0.3 coming out entirely. So it depends on your goals, and you kind of get the hang of which one to use in which scenario. Here we go, grip height and grip width. If you want to switch them, you just go grip width, and then the other one, grip height, right? You can switch back and forth. I'm going to keep it as grip width and grip. I hit Command A to select it all. Grip height. There we go. So once you have them both in there, just hit enter, and it will show that exactly as it is. You can change it by hitting this sketch dimension. This is the sort of a next video, but I'm going to give you a quick hint right now. Sketch dimension, drop down sketch dimension. Where is it? At the very bottom, D is the shortcut. You can actually hit that and find that. It should highlight blue. If I go even further, it should be a bit more clear. Double click and you can change it. Hit escape to cancel. Right? Grip height, and it will change. What do we have? Grip width and grip height. Yeah, I'm going to Command Z. I'm going to go back. There we go. So grip width, grip height, and we're set. Okay, so here is where we get interesting. I'm going to finish the sketch, and you can too. Now, this is where overlapping objects on sketches starts to change things. This is where you can actually make selections and cut things out. So this is kind of like putting two shapes that overlap, and you're finding the overlap, or you're removing the overlap from your options. Let me show you what I mean. Hit the extrude button, or just hit E on the keyboard. And now I can actually extrude just this section where the circle itself is cutting out. This section, I can also extrude this. Anything on this plane, right? Let me move this. The plane of this sketch can be extruded. And every single shape and edge is a separate edge, as long as it's a solid edge. If it has a hole in it somewhere, not a complete edge, it won't give you that option. So here we go. I have this one and this one. I can select this, and I can drag it out, right? Go back to 0. I can select both and drag it out. Go back to 0. I can deselect it. You can go back and forth. Just a single click, nothing else. There's no special keys. Just clicking back and forth, right? I can do this and this and drag it out. So that is the idea of what you're doing with sketches, is you're kind of sketching with the future in mind. Sketching where you can remove and cut things without having to do this complicated sketches on top of each other. If that makes any sense. I hope it does. Here we go. So we have this. And here is the other quick referencing technique. This distance here is 3 millimeters from my memory, right? The head height. So I can type in head height and it will go that up 3 millimeters, add a negative in front of it, it goes down 3 millimeters. And you can see there's no actual line here, which tells you it's the exact same distance. But here is the quick thing that I typically do. Remove that, hit 0. So fill in this distance here as 0. Now if I go down here and I click the bottom here, it doesn't show you anything, but if I click there, oh come on. All right, I'm gonna hit 1. This is a Fusion weird quirk. Hit 1, no, it's not doing what I want. -1. Not doing what I really want. Okay, maybe it's a Mac thing. I'm typically on Windows at home. Usually if you click down here on the spot you want it to go to, it should go there, but it's not. So I guess my example just fell down the drain. Head height, and let's go. Something's wrong. Maybe let's try this again. Okay, everybody hit escape. Go back to Extrude. Select that same thing. Don't change anything. Don't type in head height. And let's see if it works now. Yes, it's highlighting. There we go. That's why. You just have to reset it. Hit escape is the reset. Select it. Now watch. Click here. It will pull it down right to there. Exactly as it is. So that's sort of a quick thing to do. But here's the problem, and here's where it gets complicated. And this is why explaining things is really important. Like I mentioned, my friend just told me yesterday. The parameter is the head height. If I set this as -3, which is that distance, then when I change that parameter, it won't change this, but it will change the head height. It'll have this weird overhang. We don't want that. So I need to make it the same just for parameter's sake. But just as an idea, just remember that you can just click for distances to bring stuff out. That's the second, maybe 10th quick tip so far. Join. I don't want to join. I want to actually have a new body. And you should too. Brand new body. Why? Because we're going to take this and we're going to copy it 100 times or whatever the number is around this object. So new body, not component, but body. There we go. I have my bodies. I have my main bolt, right? Drop down bodies, bolt, and I have my grip. Why don't we actually name this to start out? This is a good thing to do. Your body, double click the name, and it should pop up like this. Let's go M3 by 10 bolt, or actually no spaces. There's a coding thing, underscore or hyphen, whatever you want, bolt. If you don't do it, that's fine. It's just naming conventions becomes, when you get more professional about this kind of stuff, it's really important to follow naming conventions. Try not to use spaces. It's just a quirk. So we're set. M3 bolt. This will just disappear in a second. I'll show you. So here we go. Well, this is getting to be a long video. Sorry about that. Next, we are going to use our second favorite tool, the circular pattern. And right here is the rectangular pattern. I'm going to drag this over and put it beside it. So I'm adding stuff to my toolbar, which is hopefully what you're doing too. The more stuff you use, when you use something often, put it in your toolbar. So circular pattern. Click that. This will pop up. We're going to change this from faces to bodies. Now what it means, just as an example, faces are just exactly the face edge. The body is the whole thing. But we don't want just a face. We want to actually have a body, which is this thing. Those bodies, it will change the selection option to bodies. Select it. And here's the first parameter within this tool is the object that you are copying. The objects is the copy thing. The axis is going to be what it's copying around. Because it's a circular pattern, it copies around a circle, basically. And it will always find the circle. It won't do a curved line that changes direction. It will only do circles. There's a special pattern option for curved lines. There's a pattern option for straight lines, for squares and circles. The only three you'll ever need, really. So axis. Now here's where we get interesting. You can click any axis you want, but I want it to rotate around this thing. There is no center axis right now on this body, just this. I can click down here too. It does the exact same thing because they're all aligned on the same origin. So click the outside here, and now the default, I haven't seen anything different ever, is three quantities. We want to go all the way around, so full. You can select the angle if you want, how you only want to do 180 degrees of it. You only want to do, let's say, 30 degrees of it. So it only goes 30 degrees. You can go negative 30 degrees. This is just in case you want later on, but we want to do actually the, I'm going to type in 360 or just go full. Suppress, we don't need this right now, just forget about it. And quantity, you can either use the up or down arrows and add. I'm going to go, let's say go 50 and see what happens. Now, I'm not being particular about the distances because I'm not going to make this object. It's not an exact copy. If you want to, you can go symmetry and you can add more terms. But basically, we're going to, let's do 50. 50 is a good number. 50. Set. Good. 50. Now I have, or you should have too, 50 of these all the way around. Next step, we're going to add these to it. And you might be thinking, this is pretty rough. You wouldn't have it in real life. I know. We're going to fix that later, and I'll show you why. We're going to be using the history panel down here. And I'm doing this, I wouldn't do it normally, but I'm doing this just to show you that you can go back in time and fix things. Now the bodies list has 50 of them, individual bodies. Body 1, 2, 3, 4, or 6, 7, it skips one. What we want to do is combine this with these. And this is going to be the modify list. We have a combine down here. It should be defaulted up here. This is my most common used modifying tool. I typically move it over the very beginning so that no matter what size my window is, it's always there because it's the first tool on the list. But you can keep it here. It's up to you. Modify. And it's the same idea as the circular where you're selecting the original object that you're changing or modifying with. And this time we're going to do target body. So we're going to have the bolt itself. You can click the bolt on the screen. Or you can click the bolt in the menu, the bodies menu. And then the tool bodies are what you're adding to it. So what happens is the target body becomes the original body, that it stays where it is. It doesn't change. And all you're doing is adding to it. If I selected this one here and I added tool bodies and I selected the bolt, what would happen is the bolt will be added to this one and the name would probably change. Let's test that. It does. The name changes. So now this is called body 4. I don't want that. So Command Z, Control Z, go back. My bolt is back. So target body is what you're adding to. Tool bodies is what you're adding with, or I don't know how to explain it, to be honest, in a different way. And you can select individually. You can go here and select this one, scroll down and hold shift. Let's move this out of the way. Hold shift and select this and hold shift and it will select all of them. You can, let's cancel that out. You can hold command or actually just click around and select individual bodies. You can select individual bodies here. There's 1,000 options you can do, but we are going to do the quick version. There's 2 of them. Again, I showed you, which is select, roll up, select the first one, scroll down to the bottom and hold shift and select them all. The other option is to just highlight them. In the first video I showed you, if you don't highlight the full object, it won't select it. Let me show you this. Highlight these. It will only select the ones I fully highlighted. These weren't selected. If I cancel that out and I select all of these, but this one here, I'm going to go half. Even just a little bit off where the bottom here is not touched, it won't select it. So just make sure you're covering the full object or avoiding other objects. As another reference, we can go freeform select, where we draw around the objects we want. We can actually draw, it's the same idea, draw inside here. Let's say go all the way down here slowly and just cut off the corner, even so slightly. Watch, it's not selected. Just watch that. And the last one is painting. Just paint over all the objects you want. Let's rotate around, and we missed one. Oh, we didn't miss one. There we go. All painted. Whatever your selection preference is, all the same in the end. Now we're going to go OK, and it becomes a single body, still named Bolt, because that was the target. That was the original. Okay. I think this is as far as you need to go, really. The next thing we're going to do is just add some quick chamfers and smoothness around it. Let's see. What should we do next? Oh, actually, you know what? I'm losing my mind. Let's go back and let's add the actual threading. This is something that's key. There's a couple different options. Modify. No, it's under Create Thread right here. I usually add this to my toolbar, but you don't have to. Threading is very simple. Select the part you want to thread. It's always going to be a face. You're not going to select the whole body. It's going to be a solid, usually, well, a rounded object. It's got to be a rounded object like this. Select it. Now, what Fusion does here is it defaults to what the proper thread would be for the exact size of it. If you're doing millimeters, it will do a millimeter thread, a metric thread. If you're set to inches here, we'll probably go to an inch thread. And let's say you're doing pipe threads, or you're doing, let's see what the other options are. Pipe threads, tapping threads. It will basically pick the best one it thinks is for that exact diameter. Because we're 3 millimeters, it picked metric, 3 millimeters, and the default is 0.5. You can actually change the distance between threads to smaller. It only gives you a few options depending. If I change the size of the thread, let's say go 4, it will actually change this, I think. Yeah, it does. But what that does is it removes that parameter reference we put in earlier. So just watch that. Make sure you're in the right thread, 3 millimeter. Right-handed thread, class 6G, 4G6. If you know what they are, good. If you don't worry about it. Just keep whatever it says there. You can click to remember it, which means if you're doing multiple threads, the same threads, you can actually just thread, click, OK, thread, click, OK, fast, and it gets remembered. We don't need that right now. But the other thing is the modeling. Right now, it's kind of like this. It's a picture that's put on top of it. It's not actually threaded in the 3D design. It's just a picture. So if you want the modeling, which does take processing speed, just FYI, click the modeling and it will model that thread as exactly as it should be. It will never be perfect in real life, but this is as perfect as you can get in the 3D world. Let's click OK and we are set. Now we have our M3, our metric 3 millimeter thread. If you want to add things to this, like you want to add a taper at the beginning, a point, you got to cancel that thread out. Let's go back. One way is to, down here, you delete it. In the first video I said don't use delete on bodies, on objects. In the history panel, you don't have options. You can go delete, and it removes that history thing. So let's see if we can add a bit of a taper to it. So let's add a chamfer. A fillet is a rounded edge. Chamfer is a straight off edge. You can change the angle, but a straightened edge. Chamfer, and let's go 1. No, wrong. Let's go 0.5. There we go. So now what's going to happen is the thread will only attach to everything but this bottom chamfer because it's not part of this cylinder. So here we go, thread, click it, model, and now my threading has a chamfer on the bottom. So you can do lots of things. Just make sure you do it in the proper order as best you can. You have to fix it. Let's say I want to fix that chamfer. Watch this. This is where we're going to change some things. Chamfer, right click, edit feature. What happens is the thread disappears because the chamfer happened before the threading right there. So basically we're going back in time. Let's go 0.4. When I hit OK, it's going to recalculate everything after it in the history, recalculate it to work properly. And this is a wonderful thing that Fusion does where you don't actually lose your progress. I can go back to the very beginning and we can actually watch exactly what we did. You can go slower. Let's go forward. Let's zoom out and let's just see it there. So watch this. Go back to the beginning, hit play, and it shows you every step you did. It's the same idea as going back in time and adding something. Let's say I want to add a box. Now, a box was just added in that spot I went back to. Let's delete it. It removes the box from that spot. Everything after is recalculated. If, and here is a actually really important thing. I hope you're still watching. If you are, really important. If you remove, let's say I make a box back here, or let's say I remove this sketch. Anything after it that uses that sketch as a reference. So the first one is the main head sketch. If I remove that sketch, basically everything else here becomes a little messed up. If it becomes yellow, it's still workable. Fusion can still work it. It's thinking harder, it's working harder, and things might not work properly, but it's still workable. If it's a red, if the icon here turns red, the blue turns red, then that reference is now disappeared. It's gone. And Fusion is saying, oh, what's going on? I don't have any reference here. I don't know what you're talking about anymore. And everything that's associated with it will not work properly, especially if you have joints and moving objects and other things that are attached to it as a reference. So please make sure you are keeping the same objects. You can always change them. Just don't delete them if they're referencing objects are really important. If you can re-reference it, and that's a future video, but just be wary of that. So basically we have our bolt, and the next last step, I'm just going to do a little bit of smoothing here. Oh, here we go. This is the first video. I mentioned how if you zoom in, it takes forever to zoom. My mouse is just rolling and rolling and rolling. An easy fix is to double click your middle mouse button, and it zooms out to the full object, and it resets your zoom speed and also your pull and movement speed. So that's just a helpful thing, just popped up right there. Next, let's add a bit of a curve to these. So let's go back to the actual object itself. Let's scroll back here to before the multiplication of that around. And I want to edit this right here. I'm changing it before I make 1,000,000 copies. And the reason why is if I add a bit of a fillet on these two corners, and let's add 0.1, no, let's add 0.05, very tiny fillet, just to round that off. Now, that one's filleted, but also, and I go forward one step, every single other one is also filleted. And this is a wonderful thing, and it's important to do it in the right order, and just be wary of this. You'll make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and you'll see this happen. We have to redo a whole series of events. It happens. It's not a big deal. But just be wary of why things are happening like this. Let's say I want to add another fillet. Let's add a chamfer actually on the top edge, but I want to add it before the fillet, because if you look, if I click the chamfer here, it's going to chamfer 0.05 the whole thing around. And the reason why is because when you're doing this, if you have a rounded edge, Fusion likes to add that to the squared edge, the straight edge you're selecting. If I go back one step, drag it, or just click this button here, drag it before the actual fillet, and now it only selects that straight edge. So it likes straight edges versus rounded edge. So try to do this kind of stuff in whatever order you'll figure out as you go along. But I want to make this chamfered in a bit. Let's go 0.05. Let's go 0.1. That's good like this. 0.1. Let's zoom out. Middle mouse down, shift button, middle mouse zoom in, and then we have chamfer on the same thing, 0.1. Good. You can actually do both at the same time. So Command Z, or Control. Click here and zoom in. Click here. Now I have two chamfers at the same time, 0.1. Does them both at the exact same time. Just make sure it says equal distance. Two distances does different angles, so watch that if you're doing multiple chamfers. Now if I go forward one, watch this. Hopefully it calculates properly. Yes, it does. The top is not chamfered, or top is not filleted, but the edge is chamfered properly. And now what I can do is add a new fillet, 0.02, a very tiny one. 0.02, and let's go forward all the way, and every single one is now chamfered and filleted, but is pretty close to being a real object. And that's the idea. You can go around and do every single little thing, because in reality, when you make anything, it's never going to be a perfect 90-degree angle, but you don't have to. I mean, if you want to go for visual perfection, go ahead. But you wouldn't do that unless you want the machine to actually do this when you're making this stuff. I hope this helps with a lot. What we're going to do now is save this. I'm going to call this bolt finished. Just in case I have to go back in time, I can see where this was, which I won't. It's only 2 saves so far, right? Version 1. Or version 2, 2 saves. So that's basically it. If you want to make it look pretty, as one last hurrah, we can go modify appearance. A is the shortcut, so just push A. And this is where Fusion does what it does, not best, but really, really well. Let's pick metal, because it's supposed to be metal. And let's make it out, let's make it brass. Polish brass, drag it over. Becomes polished brass. If you don't have them, this little download button is an option. Click it, it will download that material for that look. Old brass, that looks really bad, but watch this. Double click scaling of this sort of picture. Just paste it on top. You can scale it down to make it look more fitting for the object. You can do individual faces. You can add appearances too. Let's go polish brass on the inside and then use the same one. And you can go around and do that kind of stuff. You can do lots of things. And this is where you get renderings and things, which is another video as well. I won't do that right now. Okay. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Hit escape, cancel, hit save, and added brass, and we are set. Subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think or what you think I missed, or maybe some things you want to learn more about. Explanations can go to infinity, to be honest. I can explain it for days. So again, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.